Have you ever given everything you had to someone, only to realize that, in the end, you were left with nothing for yourself? Have you ever loved so deeply, cared so completely, that when you finally chose to sacrifice, it shattered you in ways you never thought possible? This is the story of Emily Carter, a woman who believed that love meant giving without limits, that sacrifice was the purest form of devotion. But sometimes the more you give, the more invisible you become. And Emily's journey will remind you that while sacrifice is noble, forgetting yourself in the process can leave scars deeper than any betrayal. Emily grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, and dreams often got stuck between the quiet streets and the fading billboards. Her childhood was simple. She was the kind of girl who always helped her mother in the kitchen, who took care of her younger brother when her father was working late shifts, and who always placed others before herself. That trait, her endless compassion, followed her into adulthood. But compassion, as beautiful as it is, can sometimes become a heavy burden when it's not met with balance. When Emily turned 23, she met Daniel. He wasn't the kind of man who turned heads with his looks, but he had a charm, a quiet confidence that drew her in. He made promises of forever, whispered dreams of a life built together, and Emily, who had always carried love in her heart like a flame waiting for fuel, believed him completely. For the first time in her life, she felt chosen, she felt seen. And when someone who has been overlooked suddenly feels seen, they will give everything to hold on to that light. Emily and Daniel started their life together in a small apartment just outside the city. It wasn't glamorous, but Emily made it a home. She worked 2 jobs, one as a cashier during the day, another as a waitress at night, while Daniel pursued his dream of starting a small business. She cooked, cleaned, managed the bills, and encouraged him every step of the way. She poured not just her money, but her soul into his vision. Every time Daniel failed, she told him it was okay. Every time he doubted himself, she told him he was capable. She sacrificed her own dreams, going back to school, traveling, even small joys like weekends with friends, because she believed in his but. Over time, Daniel's appreciation began to fade. What once was gratitude turned into expectation. The late nights at work became longer. The dinners she prepared went cold on the table, and the woman who once felt chosen began to feel invisible again. Still, Emily told herself this was love, that sacrifice was the proof of it. She kept giving, hoping one day he would see how much she carried, how much she gave up for him. The breaking point came 5 years into their marriage. Emily had saved 4 months to surprise Daniel with enough money to help him finally launch his business properly. She gave up buying new clothes, cut back on food, and skipped doctor's appointments just to make the savings possible. On the night of his birthday, she handed him the envelope. It held nearly everything she had. She expected tears, gratitude, maybe even the warmth of his arms around her, but Daniel barely looked at it. Instead, he frowned and asked, "Why isn't it more? This isn't enough to cover what I need." In that moment, something inside Emily broke. It wasn't just about the money. It was about years of sacrifices unnoticed, years of giving without receiving, years of love poured into a well that never filled. She smiled through the sting of tears, excused herself from the table, and cried quietly in the bathroom where he couldn't see. The next morning, she looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Pale skin, tired eyes, a smile that had disappeared long ago. That S, when the realization hit her, she had given so much of herself that there was nothing left. Sacrifice, when it becomes self-destruction, is no longer love, it's surrender. Emily had to make a choice: continue down the path of losing herself completely, or finally, painfully, choose herself. It wasn't an easy decision. Walking away from the life she had built, the man she had once loved so deeply, felt like tearing away a piece of her own heart. But she knew staying would only dig the hole deeper. So one quiet evening, she packed a single suitcase. She left behind the furniture she bought, the apartment she had decorated, and even the dreams she had once shared with him. With trembling hands, she wrote a note. It wasn't filled with anger. It wasn't even filled with blame. It simply said, "I gave you everything, and in the process, I lost myself. Now, I need to find me again." And she walked away. The days after leaving were not easy. Emily felt guilt, shame, and a crushing loneliness. She cried on the bathroom floor of her sister's house, questioning if she had made the right choice. But slowly, life began to whisper new possibilities. she started painting again, something she had loved as a child. She took a part-time class at the community college. She found work that didn't tea-drain her spirit, but allowed her to save for her own future. And in those small steps, she began to find pieces of herself that she thought were gone forever. 1 year later, Emily was standing in an art gallery, her art gallery. Paintings she had poured her soul into lined the walls. People admired them, asked about them, and for the first time, she felt not invisible, but radiant. She wasn't defined by her sacrifices anymore. She was defined by her strength to rise after being broken. And when she looked back at the woman who had once believed that love meant giving everything, she realized the truth. Love should never cost you yourself. Sacrifice is beautiful when it's shared, when it's balanced. But when it breaks you completely, it's no longer love, it's a warning. So here is the lesson Emily's story leaves us with. In life, you will be asked to give, to bend, to sometimes sacrifice. And yes, love often requires us to put someone else before ourselves. But never let your sacrifices erase who you are. Because the world doesn't just need what you can give, it needs you, your dreams, your passions, your voice. If you find yourself pouring endlessly into someone or something that only takes, remember Emily. Remember that strength isn't in how much you can lose for others, but in how much you can love yourself enough to walk away when it's destroying you. You deserve a life where sacrifice doesn't break you, but builds you. You deserve love that doesn't just stay, but sees you. And most importantly, you deserve to never lose yourself in the name of saving someone else. Because the truth is this, when she finally sacrificed, it broke her completely. But from those broken pieces, Emily rebuilt a woman stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever before. And so can you.